last time. Hey, welcome back to the show. We have a name now. It is the All I Ever Wanted podcast. Ooh. Yeah, so let's get into it. The number one question we are asked by the public, people we meet, people who message in, is they want to learn about, your side hustles, your investing. What's out there? Because when you think investing, the average person thinks stock market, real estate. Yeah, that's great and all. You can make some money there. You got to really understand both of them if you're going to play them in up and down markets. So what other options are out there? Well, I can tell you right now, people that are wealthy, they don't just sit around and reap the benefits of their stock market plays and real estate plays. No, they like to do other things that not only allow them to have fun, but treat as an investment as well. One of them, which I hold a personal interest in, if you know anything about my history, and our guest, who I'll throw it to right away, he has a huge interest in this, and some might actually say he has more knowledge in his 24-year-old brain than I ever had, even with 15 more years on him. And that is the specialty car market. I guess it's not. First off, this is Connor.
Nice to meet you all.
It's not just cars, right? I'm sure there's other luxury jets. Not a lot, but I shouldn't just say car, right? Maybe automotive.
Yeah, definitely. The automotive sector, especially in recent years, has been out of control in regards to both the general market as well as the exotic and high-end luxury market. When COVID hit, we had the chip shortage. The order times on a lot of manufacturers was slowed down exponentially. I mean, there were guys waiting 3 or 4 years on a GT3 RS, which is just nuts. So that drew a lot of attention to the used side or the pre-owned side, and that's correcting now with more of the typical makes and models like your Ford F-150s and everything. But the exotic world is still going crazy. Yes. And there's definitely no coming back. A lot of people were kind of speculating that we'd see a drop, but it's been, it's the end of 2022. Records are being set every month, it seems. RM Sotheby's just set 3 records 2 weeks ago with an F50, and I believe one of their hammers, AMG hammers, and a Porsche, an air-cooled Porsche just sold for over $1 million on Bring a Trailer. So there's a lot of crazy stuff going on.
And what I let go of a 963, I was doing well in the low Canadian, but 180 American. And that was doing very well on that car. Now you're saying that those ones are going upwards of $1 million now?
Yeah, an air-cooled 94 Turbo S.
Oh, so 993.
I believe a 993 sold for 1.3 US. Yeah, for 993, even an last of the air-cooled. Obviously, collector miles. I think it had less than 20,000 miles on it in black.
That's insane.
Yeah, crazy price point. But I think we're at a point where there's so much public knowledge out there on the forums, and there's so many different opportunities on YouTube to find people that are sharing the information about these cars that more people can get into these markets that aren't car people and just kind of or figure out what is going to be collectible in the future without necessarily knowing what is collectible today. And it just boils down to a few characters.
You're going to use the word knowledge again, right?
Yes, that's right.
It's not money. It is knowledge of a product, service, or an idea.
Yeah.
How many times it keeps coming back? We don't script this shit, but every time we talk to someone, knowledge about what you're investing in. Don't do it because someone told you to. Do it based on your knowledge. Guess what? There's very little risk in anything if you know all the variables.
Absolutely.
Sorry, we'll throw it back to you.
No, I totally agree. And these days, the beautiful thing is with all the legislation from a lot of the Western countries getting rid of the fun and enjoyable analog sports car, it has caused everything to increase. What's the saying? When a tide rises, all boats
float.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. That was a terrible analogy, but
he's not a philosopher.
Yeah,
people.
I'm not. But a rising tide lifts all sails. I think that's what it is. So Even cars that weren't doing fantastically 4 or 5 years ago are doing exponentially better now. And I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity for, like I said, anybody who maybe even doesn't know a ton about cars to get into that market and start investing and buy some stuff that they can enjoy and or not enjoy, put away, and sell in 3, 5, 10 years and double, triple, quadruple, 10x their money, because that's what we've seen in just the last few years. There's countless examples. So if you don't mind, I'll dive into a few of the characteristics here that I believe.
Oh, please do,
Yeah.
because this is the information they may not understand, but at least they can go and research after hearing you talk about it.
Absolutely.
Because I don't want people to just go and be like, well, I'm going to buy a car and it's going to be worth money. How often has that happened?
Yeah.
There's no car that you can walk into a dealership other than, say, your occasional, like the GT500, like something like that. If you bought a brand new GT500 Shelby Mustang, you literally towed it home, I guarantee you it's worth more in 5 years.
Yep.
There's very few and far between that you can just go to a commercially available dealership and make money. He's talking about vehicles you will search out, find, and enjoy or store. So please go into it.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes spend years waiting, years finding them. That's the other thing too. You have to be very patient. The only opportunities where you can make money really quick, like you said, are on, like, when the new Hummer came out, the electric Hummer. I heard a story about a guy buying one of those for whatever sticker was. I don't know off the top of my head. I think it's less than $200 US for a Hummer, and they had it on the marketplace in Texas 2 days later for $350,000.
Some people just don't want to wait. If you're smart enough to catch the things, look at those new Broncos.
Oh yeah,
those are ridiculous. They had a $65,000 sticker price, which to me, you're buying an Escape, a rebranded Escape. But they took that and they said, "Oh, we're in short supply." So there were people in America buying up ours for almost $100,000 US, and if you could get one, if you were allocated one, you only bought it for 65 Canadian. Literally a $60,000 to $70,000 profit just by taking the keys and mailing them to someone.
Yeah,
that's ridiculous.
It is, and that's the thing. You're either the first one to the party, or you're gonna play it smart and let vehicles ride their course. Most vehicles will go through their cycles of depreciating after X amount of years, X amount of mileage. And then it really boils down to the first point here that I want to talk about that kind of shows if a vehicle is going to be worth more in the future, or if it's never going to appreciate, it's only going to continuously depreciate, or maybe it'll eventually appreciate to what it was sold for. And that's essentially if the technology is being replicated in future cars from that company. So a perfect example of this is a McLaren. So McLaren, they put a twin-turbo V8 in absolutely everything since the MP412C. They haven't put anything else in a car except for the F1, which had a V12, which cannot be replicated by today's standards, which is why those cars are ludicrous in pricing. But and
they were really one-off cars because you had a BMW engine in a McLaren chassis. So that's why it's so special. What are those going for now? I mean, Mr. Bean's written his off twice, and it's still a $20 million car. Biggest
insurance claim ever is still on that car.
Yeah. Everybody knows who Mr. Bean is, but research it. He's written off that F1 twice, and I think he only paid $900,000 for it, didn't he?
Oh yeah, he paid under $1 million. I know, and
he's got a $20 million rebuilt twice car.
Yeah, the claim on it was like 1.5 pounds.
Yeah.
So just crazy. But those cars were homologation cars, right? So they were made for basically a racing series. But yeah, F1s are worth anywhere from 15, for the worst example, 15 million US to probably upwards of 60, 70 million for an LM.
Oh yeah, I guess.
I mean, there's only 20 of those. Most of them will never be seen again. But so prime example of a car that's not going to be worth much. Anything from McLaren that's modern, there's no collectability in it. McLaren don't do anything in limited production other than the Senna and the P1, which I don't know. I think the P1 will be worth something one day. I don't think the Senna is particularly special.
I love the looks of the Senna, but I had looked at picking one up, and they kind of just floated in price. When I was looking at it, it was like 1.19. It went up to 1.39, but then kind of sat there. I don't know where they are now, but it's almost like the moment the P1 kind of just did its thing, it's like, well, here's a 1.2 for the rest of the time.
Yeah, and I think it's because the P1, because of its release, it came out with obviously the LaFerrari and the 918, and that was kind of, they called it the holy trinity of the 2010s.
Hypercars.
The first of the hypercars. So I think that car will hold its value because of that, but I don't want to go too far off subject.
Yeah.
Basically, your 720S, your 570, your 67, even 675s, they're just not going to be cars that are going to be exponentially worth more than they are today, because McLaren doesn't do anything different between them. Yeah, there's some rare specs. You can get MSO cars, which is McLaren's special order. That's where you can custom spec them out, and those cars will hold value, but your run-of-the-mill McLaren will not. Whereas let's take a look at Ferrari. They're a company that obviously they've got a crazy racing pedigree. They've been around forever. They are, I think it was Ford. I can't remember the gentleman who said this, but Lee Iacocca, I think is his name. The guy who basically helped build the GT40 said that Ferrari is the greatest car manufacturer of all time, despite them making like one car for every 20,000 that Ford pumps out. And it's because they're that iconic brand. They're the Gucci, the Louis Vuitton. They're going to be known forever.
Just do things better.
They're Italian. They do everything better in the car scene. That's for sure. But a prime example is, I know you're going to hate this one, but the F50. The F50 is the last V12 Ferrari that will ever leave, obviously, Italy with a V12 in the middle connected to a 6-speed manual. And that's why one just broke a record at RM Sotheby's. I think it just sold for $5.5 million US, which for an F50 is nuts, but that's kind of setting the new bar, the new standard.
Yeah, it wasn't. What were they new? They were 600 new.
I think so. Yeah, I wasn't alive when that car came out.
Yeah, me neither.
But yeah, I do not remember what they cost new, but it certainly wasn't anywhere near $5 million. So, and
I remember they actually came below MSRP for a while because everybody hated them. You had people that loved them, very few, because when you're the predecessor to the F40 and you round everything off and you try and make it fancy, and you're not really achieving anything as far as yes, it would have been quicker lap time.
Yeah.
But it wasn't going to kill you like an F40. And I think that bothered a bunch of people, so it didn't get the world didn't take a great reception to it. Mm-hmm. So it actually started dipping down. It had lost about 20-25% of its value, but over the last 7 years,
they've just gone through the roof.
8, 9, 10 times the price.
Yep. Same at F40s, obviously. Like, they have a huge following now. You can't even get into one of those for less than $3 million. So, and obviously, you want to talk about your F40 story?
This one's for you, Ito. Ito competition over in Germany. Back in 2015, he had offered me, had some kilometers on it for just over €400. And I was like, no, I got some other stuff I got to take care of. See, we all make mistakes. Yes, it probably needed 80,000, 90,000 euro worth of refreshing and all that. But even if you sink 150 at that point, it's at least worth 4 times what I would have paid for it in 8 years.
Yeah, no time.
That's the one I kick myself for. I don't have a lot of investments that have gone up 800% in 8 years, but that's I knew better.
Yeah, and I mean, the truth is, nobody really knew back then in 2015. That was still a little bit early to this game in terms of the returns that we're seeing. But, I ended up getting my 458, which I did pretty decent on. Not those kind of numbers, but drove it for a while, sold it, made money. Can't argue with it, but not exponential growth. Yeah, and that's the thing. There's just so many models now that are doubling, which is just unheard of. For the last 30, 40 years, that just wasn't a thing, that didn't exist. And now it seems like anything that's naturally aspirated, that has no traction control, no ABS, has heritage, rare production number or low production number, they're all going through the roof. Yeah. So, but the next part that I was going to kind of touch on here is basically understanding the brands, because that's another thing too that really helps you understand what to buy, because the psychology behind owners of these cars is all very different. And I'm talking on the general scale. Obviously, you'll have your one-offs, guys that are typically more Lambo fans, but they like maybe 1 or 2 Porsches. But Porsche owners predominantly are different than Ferrari owners and are different than Lamborghini owners.
And you all know it because you can make jokes about them when they drive by. Oh, it's that type of guy. Oh,
Yeah.
it's so true. Lambo guys rarely ever own a Ferrari, and vice versa. They always just say, well, if I have to buy one, I'll get one for the wife, because they always got to take that dig. They're not the same people at all.
It's very true. And I think a very general statement is Lamborghinis are for people that care more about what they look like, and Ferraris are for people that care more about setting track times and going fast. That's very general. Don't take offense. Actually, I don't really care if you take offense.
I don't take offense. I know why they make Lambos so pretty.
Yeah.
Because they're broken down all the time. They got to look good on the highway as you're driving by.
That's right.
They look good on flat decks. For all my Lambo friends out there that have uninvited me to Christmas dinner.
But you know what? The one thing Lamborghini's done really well recently is with the Aventador and the Huracan, they're probably one of the most reliable exotic cars out there. They are just don't stop working. They have so much engineering into their transmissions, their engines. They don't break down like the Murcielagos do.
Volkswagen did their homework when they stepped into that production line midway through your Mercies and your Gallardos, and they started. Those transmissions were bulletproof. You used to blow up an E-gear just doing a burnout right out of the dealership. But a Huracan, I don't know a lot of people that have broke. I know people that have broken them, but they're going well beyond how you normally drive them.
Oh yeah, and they're probably doing power add-ons and whatnot. But without getting
shout out to Central.
Yes,
this is their place. Couldn't do this without them. Very awesome.
No, it's beautiful. But without going too far down that path, thanks. I would say that in general, take a look at brands, like pretty much everything out there, and just figure out what you identify the most with.
Wow, that's a phrase now, isn't it?
What?
How do you identify?
Oh, yeah.
I'm a Ferrari.
Yeah, I would definitely happily identify as a Ferrari.
Yeah.
For performance reasons.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Ladies love sitting on Ferraris.
That's right. But, yeah, at the end of the day, just figure out what you stand by and buy into those. And then, the last thing I wanted to talk about was just basically the supply and demand. It's no different than stocks. It's no different than buying crypto or buying any sort of rare like fashion accessories, anything like that. A lot of car companies, especially from before 2000, built cars in limited production, and especially, they would say they would make a certain amount, and then they would actually do that. Unlike nowadays, where McLaren say they're going to make 1,600 LTs, and then they sell them all and decide they're going to sell another 250 or 500. If you bought one of those cars, you'd be furious because the whole point is it's a limited run, which means it's going to ideally hold its value. But with a lot of car companies understanding now that there's so much more money on the market, they're greedy. They want to take that money. They will keep pumping out as many of a make and model as they wish because they don't care. Versus, looking back 20, even 10 years ago, when Lamborghini made the Murcielago SV, they said they were only going to make 250 of them. They actually only made 186. Enzos, they only made 450-ish or 440.
Was it over 400?
I think the official production lineup was 399.
That's that's the number I remember. But throwing out a couple more.
And they built a few more, but it's not like nowadays where they're building thousands or something. Yeah. And furthermore, you look at the Enzo as an example. How many of those are actually on the market? Well, yes, they made 399 on paper. And
is it 4 for sale every year, maybe?
Yeah, all the ones that are being publicly traded, they'll keep changing hands until a collector decides they don't want to sell them anymore. Yep. And what a lot of people don't realize is these cars just end up going into garages and never being seen again and getting passed through generations. There's a ton of Bugattis, very vintage race cars from turn of the century, anything from the 1920s, 30s, 40s, that have never been seen since they left the factory, like literally before World War II. And those cars are worth hundreds of millions of dollars today. Like some of the original Bugattis.
Yeah,
like
stuff that would easily set new records.
Yeah.
But you can't, when you're a billionaire, why do you care to sell a car for 150 million?
Exactly. It's about owning it. So that is how crazy the car world is. There's stuff that's worth in the hundreds of millions. An SLR, Mercedes 300 SLR from 1942, or I might be off in the year 52.
54.
Or 54, sold for $142 million last year.
Yeah, that blew my mind. I was not expecting a Mercedes to be the first 6-figure car publicly sold.
Yeah.
I mean, they were tracking the 275s and 250 Ferraris, 40, 50, 60 million. So that blew my mind when I saw that.
Well, Ralph Lauren's 250 GTO, which is arguably the best one left, they recently appraised it. A couple guys in that scene kind of came to the number of about 80 million for a and that would be the most expensive 250 GTO. So to see a Mercedes go for almost double,
yeah,
that's insane. So, and keep in mind, you could get a 250 GTO in the 90s for like under $25,000 probably, or probably under $100,000 in the 90s.
Oh, I wasn't even looking at them back then.
Yeah,
but
they just.
I know that it was kind of like you could get a 308 or a 328 or a 348. They were under 50, like a 308 you could get for $32,000. And this last, like you said, the swing for the last 4 years, they're back over 100.
Yep.
I'm like, it's like a Triumph TR7 with a V8 in it. If you ever watched, oh God, I can't remember his name now. He just did the 308 with the K-Series swap.
Oh, B is for Bill? Or no,
Mike
Button.
Burrows.
Oh, okay.
And he did that, and I'm just sitting there, like he said, there's nothing good about this car. It weighs too much, and it's got 160 horse. Why would you buy this car? And then boom, they're worth over $100,000.
Yeah, it's nuts. So essentially, at the end of the day, almost everything's going up. As long as it's not too modern, too technologically advanced, too.
And the base models of exotics will never be big. I mean, like buying a Gallardo.
Yes.
You might see a $10,000-$20,000 appreciation if you keep it super clean and the right buyer wants it down the road.
Mm-hmm.
But like our friend Neil, his has got to be worth 40 because he's got a Super Trofeo.
Yep.
Got it for a smoking price. Knew what he was in the market for. He's got to be at least 40 or 50 points up by now.
And that's an interesting car because it won't be easy to sell because of what it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's a rare, very rare piece in a rare color too. I don't think there's many of them in white.
No,
I think
there's
most of them are
only 4
red.
in Canada, and one is red. One is white. The other 3 are red.
Yeah, a lot of them were. I think Rosso Vic was the car they sold in, but that is that's the kind of car.
Someone
that's
looking for it will pay.
To the right buyer, it's worth an exponential amount of money. So.
If you're wondering what we're talking about, if you go to our channel, it's one of our first fast drives. It was a shitty day, but not because we were in a Lambo, but because it was kind of drizzling. We couldn't have a lot of fun. But if you want to see what it looks like, there it is.
Yeah, I've seen that car a few times in person. It's beautiful. But it's not that hard to own. It's actually the easiest to own a depreciating Lamborghini. Anyone can go to a dealership and get a base model poverty spec Huracan. Put like $20,000 down and make a $2,000 a month payment on it.
Oh yeah, this is a good thing that he's pointing out. When you think someone's doing well because they've got he calls it the poverty spec, they're usually still $160,000 to $230,000 cars.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is, 10% down, 15% down, you can treat it like a mortgage payment.
Yep.
You're going to probably pay a little higher interest, but the amount, if they're not getting something that's going to appreciate, the amount they pay, it doesn't mean they got money. It means they work the numbers right, and they're going backwards really fast.
Yeah.
Like if you were to invest the kind of dollars that are put into a lease payment on one of those, or the financing payment on top of the down payment, if you just invested that for the term of the paying off the car,
mm-hmm.
you'd have a free car's worth of money, instead of having to give it back at the end of a lease or try and find a seller of a depreciated asset. But like I said, we know some people that play that game very, very well. Why put up $250,000, $300, $350, $400, when you can get a slightly used one with low kilometers
mm-hmm.
and factor the numbers in so that as you're paying it down, it's a collectible item, which is going up in value. I think that's really what he's been getting at a lot here.
Absolutely. But yeah, I just can't emphasize enough that like you can get these, I guess, kind of poser spec cars almost like.
Wow. Tell me how you really
talking
feel.
Some smack here, but I hate these cars because the problem is the people that buy them, the only people that are impressed are people that don't know what they're looking at. It's all the people that have no clue what it is. Anyone in that world that can afford those, probably has multiple of them, does not care, and furthermore sees yours as like, okay, what are you doing? Like, why did you buy this? This is a terrible spec. It has there's nothing special about it. You're obviously just trying to get attention, and you could be putting your money elsewhere.
That's the guy that walks in, gets in, sits down at the restaurant, puts his key on the table with the Lambo badge up or the Mercedes badge up on the keys. Like you said, he has to be seen with it.
Correct.
But people have no idea that poverty spec, what it is he's got out there. And a lot of you would be like, yeah, but he's still got a $250,000 car. No, he doesn't. The bank does.
Yeah. And it's not going to be worth $250,000 very long if he keeps driving it.
That's the other problem. Most things go down as you drive more of them.
Correct. Yeah. And a lot of those cars are, they kind of look like, they get a lot of smack because they look like rentals, right? That's the big thing. That's how like all the exotic rental companies, they buy them base, and they get a ton of miles put on them. And if you want a clapped out exotic, you can get them from those companies. But once again, they're usually not they're usually a good price, and they look the front of the deal looks appealing, but in reality, the setbacks from maintenance and the aggressive behavior of the people that have obviously rented it, they're definitely not a good deal.
Yeah. One last topic, because we get asked about this a lot. A lot of people see things on YouTube, how to buy this, how to buy that. I think the number one vehicle that we've been asked about as far as, and it's not a really good investment, it's just things that people want to be able to write off in businesses. G-Wagons. Can you explain, because no one seems to listen to me when I explain it to them. The only reason a G-Wagon falls under a company expense is because it's GVWR rating. It's gross vehicle rating. Because it's over 5,100 pounds, it's classified, it's heavy enough to be classified as a commercial vehicle. Thus, you can write it off in your business. That does not mean it's an investment, because it's still going down in value.
Yeah.
Is there anything more you can add to that? Like, I can't seem to get that across to people. They're so...
Is your audience just obsessed with G63s?
Oh my God. We get everybody says, oh, how do I get into I don't even care if I got to get into an older G55, but I'd love a G63. Oh, that's my, and I'm just, okay, one, you're making $50,000 a year.
Yeah.
Stop talking about $250,000 SUVs that, I'm going to be honest, they ride like crap.
Yeah.
If you get the bulletproof models, that's pretty cool. But I don't know, just so many people are looking for an easy way to buy something really expensive that's just going to set them back. Just because it's a company expense doesn't mean it's a good
use your money.
Expenditure.
No.
If you just invest for 4 to 5 years, you can have it for free. But when you actually have the money to buy something, you never want it, because you're like, why would I give up money that I worked for? Oh, I can just make payments and I can write it off onto my business. That's why you see so many G-Wagons out there.
They're and I'm kind of a terrible example for talking about G-Wagons, because I kind of have a soft spot for them. I think they're hilarious. Like, I like them kind of ironically because they're so fast, especially the AMG models.
Oh, the Brabus?
The Brabus cars.
I'm not saying I don't like them. I can't imagine bankrupting yourself to get into that.
They also drive.
For all you buying Range Rovers,
yeah.
Just do everything else you do research on. When people go and buy Range Rovers, do you guys not know that it is the number one recalled vehicle per unit on the planet?
So horribly made. Yeah. It's absolute junk.
The depreciation is worse than anything else. You can't actually make your payments quicker than the price of the vehicle goes down.
Yeah.
This is a whole other topic.
Oh, I know.
We don't want to get too far.
So many electrical issues. I would stay away from.
How many of the sports burnt up, superchargers lit on fire?
Wow, this is your burning hatreds for vehicles. In the ranges. Yeah. They're ugly, and they don't drive that great. And what I wanted to touch on is G-Wagons especially don't drive great. And in fact, if you have OCD, just don't even consider getting one now unless you're getting a 2020 or newer, because all of them, if you've driven one, right? The steering wheels are all crooked. They all drive crooked. And
it's like driving a Viper.
Yeah.
You're like.
Yeah, it's. I don't know. They're not that great. That's all I can say. But yeah, they
look cool in 6x6.
They do look cool as a 6x6. I think they're actually the older ones might be a decent investment, because one thing Mercedes did really intelligently with the G-Wagon is they didn't change it. And this is one of the...
Oh, yeah, you can get away with looking like you got a 6.3 with an old 5.5.
Oh, like literally a 2003...
Or even just a G300 or whatever they...
Yeah, the 550 or the 500,
Well,
550.
there used to be that in the late 90s, early 2000s, there was like a,
Like a
go back to
four-cylinder,
your
right?
poverty spec one. I saw one of these things and
Base model.
oh my God, it didn't even have flares. It had like 15-inch wheels. This looks like a liability on wheels.
Yeah, that might be like the military spec because that's what they were built for.
Okay.
But yeah, like a 2003 G-Wagon looks exactly like a 2017. So from that standpoint, that's partially why they've held their value. They do hold their value, but they are, this is another thing I bet your audience doesn't know. They're the only vehicle that you can still buy brand new that's on what's called a timed service. So that means it doesn't matter if you drive at 25 kilometers or 2,500 kilometers. In 6 months, you have to take it to Mercedes to get service A. And 6 months later, you got to take it to get service B and service C and back and forth. And the cheapest one is $1,200, by the way. And that's changing your diff fluid and your oil and all that. And the reason is because it's got 3 locking diffs, which nobody needs unless you're doing like
Rallying.
proper off-roading. Yeah. If you're in Edmonton, you definitely don't need 3 diffs.
No.
But yeah, don't buy a G-Wagon unless it's a 63. I don't know. That's my opinion. But
I would have just left it at don't buy one.
yeah, I wouldn't buy one, especially if like they're so expensive, like over 200 grand. There's so many better options.
I saw a few of them earlier this year with a few thousand kilometers on them for over 290, and it was blowing my mind because when I looked at getting one new 10 years ago, it was only 160, and that was just you're rolling out of there looking like you've got Ferrari money.
But they weren't everywhere 10 years ago. That's the other thing too.
Yeah.
They're everywhere now, and I don't know why people.
I know
see the
why,
appeal.
because the moment you had Lamborghini bringing out, your ass, and things like these massively high horsepower SUVs, the RSQ8.
Yeah.
You got the Pearl Sangue now. You got Bentley stepping into the game. Like all these. It just gave Mercedes the ability to go, well, let's put some new trim in and add 100K.
Yeah.
So the Mercedes purists didn't want to go to other brands, but they wanted to at least be able to park at the country clubs. So that is literally just a luxury tax Mercedes slapped on. You're not getting 100,000 more vehicle than 2015.
Definitely not.
You're just 100K lighter.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Don't buy one.
don't buy one. All right, we'll wrap that one up here. Connor, thanks a lot for being on the show.
It. Thank you.
If you like this one, comment. Let us know what you liked. If you have any other questions, Connor's in the same city. We can have him back on at any time.
You bet.
And
You can shoot me a message on Instagram. I'll put my thing here.
oh,
somewhere.
I guess Connor's stuff will be on Instagram.
Yeah. Shoot me a message there. I post like every day. So.
Whoa. Craziness.
I know.
All right. For Connor, producer Mac, I'm Chris. All I Ever Wanted podcast. We out.